mean, there are certain moments in the film that I love and I find really creepy, and sometimes get no reaction. It's interesting because the first woman in black that you see in the film, I don't think has been picked up on either premiere. It's a really, really subtle moment where I'm in the foreground, and just in the background you just see this shape suddenly just turns, and you see the whiteness of the face. That hasn't been picked up on yet. Also the moment where the eyes are suddenly scratched out of the painting, out of the photo, I find that very, very creepy, and again, so far, kind of that. But also that's not a moment where you'd hear the reaction as well. It was interesting last night because normally I sit a lot further back at premieres, and you can really sense. Both you hear it, but also seeing it, you can see people react to stuff as well. You get a sense of that. And I was a lot further forward last night, so I could only see... The 3 rows in front of me were very, very responsive and reactive to the film. I can only assume but that behind me was as well. The way you can always tell, actually, is... Because often the moments of... like a jump moment in the film comes often with quite a heavy sound cue, right. So it's hard to I couldn't hear the screams, but what you could hear last night was the laughs afterwards, because afterwards everyone has this nervous laugh of the release of tension, and so as long as you know you're getting that, then you know you must be getting the good reaction. Right.
Now, why was this project important to you? Because after Potter started to wind down, and you knew there was an end date. You know, it was one of those things that were very specific things so you could plan ahead, and you went to Broadway to do things. You must have gotten sackfuls of scripts, truckloads of scripts. So why was this one different? Why did this one stick out as the first big project post-Potter?
I think because it was... One of the things that made it really stand out was that it was a genre movie, but that it was unusual for its genre. That, you know, nowadays we're kind of saturated with the kind of gory, gratuitous, upsetting, visually kind of films. But you know, this is all about suspense and what you don't see, and James, our director, really lets the tension build, and is very, you know, that's very important. So yeah, but the main thing about it was just the story. The story was really classic and very chilling and really scary, and I wanted to be a part of telling that story.
I'm not surprised that you would choose something that feels like a classic piece, because last night when we were chatting backstage, you were rattling off film titles, which I might not necessarily have expected from a young man. Someone, you know, so clearly you must have a lot of Blu-rays and must have a big DVD collection, and you really gravitate, it seems to me, towards classic British cinema or classic cinema in general.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I love when before, you know, and I know that I do see the irony of me saying this, having been in such a huge visual effects franchise, but before we got kind of hooked on that visual effects was the way of achieving things. Right. You know, I love A Matter of Life and Death because it achieves so much, and it is one of the most visually impressive, imaginative films ever. And you know, they didn't have visual effects. What I love is when the when the frame freezes, and you know you can still see the actors just moving slightly, but it doesn't matter because it's a film, and you suspend your disbelief, and you don't care. And you know, I mean, the scariest visual effects ever for me were the skeletons in Jason and the Argonauts. Yeah. You know, that like Ray Harryhausen is a god, and I was talking to, actually, funny enough, when I did Saturday Night Live, I was talking to Bill Hader, who said he was at Comic-Con one year, and like there was this huge queues of people for all this, and then at a desk on his own was Ray Harryhausen with one of the original skeleton models, and Bill just went up to him and went, "You're Ray Harryhausen," and then he got like a half-hour description of, yeah, this is how we made the models, and this is how we, you know, when there was that much artistry in, not that there isn't artistry in visual effects, but when there's that much painstaking time and hours of crafting hand labor, you know, I find it beautiful, and yeah, I do. I like classic films and great storytelling, and you know, that should ultimately, you know, if it's not on the page, it won't be in the film, and if you know find the first port of call really reading any script was, is the story strong enough? You know, is this, because however good the characters or the parts might be, no one's going to care unless they're invested in a really good story, and that's what I felt this was. So yeah, that was it was nice to be a part of telling the story.
Well, I think the interesting thing about a movie like A Matter of Life and Death is, and this will connect with the woman in black as well. But I think that the interesting thing about that is you don't care about the visual effects because you do care about the characters.
Yes.
And I think, as I explained to you last night, when it dawned on me why people felt so strongly about the Potter characters, because they love those characters. They love them. They want to know what happens with them. They're deeply invested in them. Yeah. And I think when you go to see a movie like that, it can be quite a transformative experience. And I think that the Arthur Kipps character in this film, you feel for. He's a young man who's lost his very young wife, who's got a son that, and I don't want to give anything away here, but he's not ambivalent towards his son, but every time he sees his son, he sees his dead wife.
Yeah, exactly.
So you feel for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think James, one of James's strengths as a director is that it's all about character. This is a character-driven horror movie, and he realizes that there is no value having a character in danger unless the audience care about that character. So yeah, I mean, there was a lot of time, we really wanted to get the sense of Arthur's loss running throughout the film. The fact that if anything, because anything upsetting or bad that happens, the first thing he thinks is, God, I wish my wife was here. This would be so much easier if my wife was here. I could cope. So yeah, I mean, it is. I think it's very important that, and as you say, it's particularly with the Potter thing. When people go and see those films and they are so invested, it makes going to the cinema, an event, and your body is emotional already. And I think one of the other things James does in here is that he realizes there's, that if he keeps the audience in a slight state of tension for the whole film. When those jump moments happen, your body's sort of ready for it, and you react even stronger towards it. I think James is a really, really great talent and knows. He would never be limited to the genre of horror, but he understands it and really well, and knows how to execute scares, and also knows how to. What I love about this film is that one of the things I love is that the way he just plays with the audience for the first few scares, you're being faked out like 3 times. Yeah. There's the pipe going off, and then there's 2 of the crow in one scene. We get you twice, and that. But I love that because that's I like that the idea that that's just James's way of telling the audience, yeah, I'm going to be screwing with you for the next hour and a half. Welcome to my mind.
Yeah. Well, last night you told me about a scene where you're walking down a hall, and the first time you saw it, you went, I'm still walking down the hall. I continue to walk down this hallway. And it's interesting because what it said to me when I first saw the movie is that this film's not afraid to take its time to get where it's going because it understands that anticipation is 99% of horror.
Yeah, absolutely, it really is. I mean, I remember watching that scene, and I remember James behind the camera going, slower, Dan, slower, even slower, because I'm just walking down this corridor and it does seem like forever, but now, you look at that shot and you look at where the cuts come and where he chooses to cut away to something and cut back to the same shot of me walking down the corridor. It's really well put together, and he builds a suspense brilliantly over that moment, and that moment is probably the most universal moment in terms of what people associate, in terms of a moment from the book that is also essential in the play and the film. Right. That whole sequence is something that real fans of the book will I think recognize and love.
Now, in terms of another project, how are you choosing things these days? Because I think it's interesting the work you've done on stage is so different from one another. The Equus and then How to Get Ahead in Advertising couldn't be any more different. They're different than the Potter films. This is different than all that together. Yeah. Can we next expect to see you in a futuristic sci-fi thing or a 1930s musical, or what can we see, or do you know?
Next, I do know what I'm doing next. I'm doing a film called Kill Your Darlings, which starts in mid-March and is about a murder that was sort of the catalyst for the Beat Generation to be formed. So I'm playing a 19-year-old Allen Ginsberg.
Right, and Allen Ginsberg, and you're with
and Lizzie Olsen and Jack Houston are the other names currently with us. It's very exciting, and I think one of the things in terms of picking projects, I know that I have a long way to go as an actor. I'm 22. I'm at the stage where most actors will be coming out of drama school, but because I've got 10 years experience on a film set, I think people expect me to be, more complete perhaps than I am. I think there are some things I do really well, and there are some things that I see and I go, okay, I know how to fix that now. Also, what's kind of weird, what's been kind of not hard, but it's kind of tough, is that this film is coming out, and I feel I did this a year and a half ago, and I feel like I've made huge strides since then, and so, but now I'm being judged on that work rather than on the work I think I'm capable of now. But so I think in terms of picking projects, it's about trying to find things that will get you better, will improve you, will challenge you. I think the only way to get better and learn is to challenge yourself and take risks. But also working with, I'm the director of this film is a guy called John Krakidas, and he is already introducing me to ways of working that I have never even known existed before. I think it's, at this stage, it's about working with people who, you're going to feed off. And because, if you look at the Potter films, my work is immeasurably improved any time I'm on screen with Gary Oldman, Alan Rickman, or David Thewlis. When you're suddenly at that level, you feel you just have to raise your game. That does something to me. So I think that'll be, I think it'll be good. I'm at the moment, it's just about showing as much diversity and versatility as I possibly can.
Well, I thought it was interesting last night after the Q&A after the introduction to the Q&A was over. I went to usher you off stage, and you said, no, I'm going to stay and watch the movie, because so many actors don't stay and watch the movie. They've seen it, they've been there, they've done that.
Yeah,
and I thought it was
interesting. Last time I'll watch it. It was last night. Yeah, I watched it last night, and I was like, okay, I've picked this apart enough now. I don't need to watch anymore. The line between self-critical and self-hating is blurred, and actually watching it last night was kind of useful, because normally when I watch stuff, I watch things and I go, I don't like that, but I don't know what to do about it. Right. Whereas last night I was going, oh, this is how this could be improved. This is, because sometimes, I see myself in a certain scene or something, and there's just something that, I know I could have done better. And so it's about, but last night was actually more useful than it normally is to watch a film, because normally I absolutely hate watching them and hate watching myself. But last night it was actually more fun, because I was suddenly realizing how I could have improved stuff, which feels like progress.
Right. No, absolutely. So it's a learning experience sitting and watching the film.
But that's the thing, Alan, all those actors I just mentioned, Alan, Gary, and David, and many more besides that I've worked with, the defining feature of them is that they never want to stop learning. They never feel they're finished. Alan Rickman is constantly trying to get better and refine. And when you see that in somebody who is A, brilliant, and B, 30 years older than you, it's very inspiring. And to see that they have gone through their whole careers and never been satisfied.
Right. I want to ask... Sure, thank you. I want to ask about the reaction of the crowd last night, and the reaction of the crowd towards you, because as an outsider to that, I was blown away. When I brought you out on stage, the screams that came out are deafening. The girl that wanted the hug from you was very sweet, but I mean, it's got to be everywhere you go. And I just wonder how it is that you're able to deal with it. I don't even really know how to frame the question, but you've grown up with it, so it's just part of your life.
It's kind of part of my life. But you always have to. I think the way I have sort of rationalized it is that by going, I think the thing you always have to remind yourself of, it's not about me. It's about the fact that I played this character who became beloved, and anyone who took on that character would be getting this reaction. The fact that I'm now getting it on my own, away from the series, is very gratifying, though obviously it's still kind of residual from Potter, and they're still, the fans of that and fans of me. But yeah, you just have to laugh at it and keep it, and have a sense of humor about it, and really the most important thing is to find it funny and weird, and just and as I said to you, when I'm at home smoking a cigarette and it's cold and I'm in my Canada Goose jacket eating half a pizza, those are the moments that you have to take a picture of yourself then, and then kind of play it to yourself when you're on the red carpet, to just go, yeah, you're not all that really. It's a funny thing, but you don't get used to it. And in fact, I did a show yesterday. Was a Much Music Live? Yeah. And it's been a long time since I've heard screaming like that. Like when I went on that show, that it was not since Japan have I really been in close proximity to that level of screaming.
Yeah, bring earplugs next time.
I will do.
Daniel, thank you so much. Pleasure. It was a pleasure to see you again. Thank you.
Awesome, and I will see you next time I'm in Canada,
Absolutely.
if not before.
Absolutely. We'll enjoy the rest of your trip here.
I will do. Are we back to tea?